Hi, I'm Angela Wolf. I'm a fashion designer, and today we're going to go back to the 30s and talk about some of the beautifully draped outfits they had. Both of these right here are draped. They were draped on a mannequin. It's one of the easiest things to do, so I want to show you just the basics, and when you leave here, you're going to have a tank top in about a half an hour tops. So this one here was all draped, and I just want to show you this. Look at how long that is on the inside. This is all on the bias, and it just drops, just beautifully. Now this here is not on the bias. The key when you're draping is you can't just drape it and think it's going to attach to your body. You have to have a strap or something. So when this was draped, I added the band to hold it in place. And then just some fun petals that were all cut on the bias. So a really fun top. This one has a side zipper because also keep in mind you have to get in the garment. So here's another gown, and this gown has layers and layers and layers of chiffon. Don't ask about the color, it's getting ready to go in the dye bath, but I had to share it anyways. So this whole top was draped. All of this fabric was draped, which is why I have this panel of fabric here, because it had to attach to something. So here's the panel, and then I hand beaded everything just to give it a little more pizzazz. Actually, in the 30s, they didn't do a lot of beading because the beauty of it was they let the fabric create everything. So I got a little carried away on this one. Here is a dress that I just spent about 15 minutes draping just to kind of see how the fabric looks. This is just a polyester charmeuse, which if you have a choice, I would go with the silk charmeuse, but they both drape beautifully. This whole skirt was just cut on the bias. This isn't finished by any means, I just draped this. And this top here is all draped, and it has a tie in the back. Very, very, very simple. And then this band is what I'm attaching everything to, and there would be a side zipper to get in and out. This one here I had to bring out of the stash. I actually took this fabric from my mother in 7th or 8th grade, and she's probably only going to find about it now on TV. And I took this and I sewed it, and this top I wore all through college. It's really fun, it's very simple. And I'm going to take this off and show you what this is. You won't believe it. It looks like it would have taken hours and hours and hours. Don't look at the stitching too closely, by the way, because it's very crooked and very messy. But that's the beauty of sewing. Nobody knows it when it's on your body. Look at this. It's a square of fabric. That's it. With a button hole on one side, a button on the other. And on this side, I just did a little scrunching because it was too loose on my back. A square of fabric can look like that. So let's get into a little bit of the basics of draping. This is tape. It's really thin tape. It's artist tape, and you can get it at pretty much any office supply store. You could also use electrical tape if you want something thicker. You need a dress form, preferably one you can stick some pins into. I want to show you the technique. You'll have a pin, and this is how you just kind of angle it to the side. You're not poking. We're not trying, this isn't a voodoo doll. We're just like sliding it in like this. That's how you're going to hold your fabric in place. So if your fabric goes this way, your pins go this way, and vice versa. You also need to kind of measure all of the measurements and compare them to your own. Maybe you have to pad out your mannequin. Sometimes for some of my customers, everything will fit perfect through here, but they have a larger chest. So I'll just put a bra on her and fill it. So don't think it's too technical. Just make sure that the dress form is pretty close to your size. And then you're going to take this tape and mark a few things. This is the center of my body. Center of her body. That's what this is here. I know you're probably wondering, what on earth was that? That's the center of her body. I wanted a wrap top, so I knew I wanted to come over. Once you start draping, if you're not paying attention to the lines of the body, you might end up with a garment that you thought was symmetrical and it's not. The other thing I want to mark is the waist. Those are the two main things. Now the other thing I like to do, like with that pink garment, what I did there is I actually marked, this is where I wanted the fabric to go. You can actually design your top or your outfit on the dress form using this tape. It gives you a guide. Let me get one more piece here. It gives you a guide of where your fabric is going to go. So I know that when I drape my skirt, which we're going to do, I want it to go to the waist. When I add my band, I want it to go to the waist. When I do my top, I want it to go somewhere like this. It just gives you a guide. One more thing, maybe I want a tank top. Again, keeping in mind the body, I'm just going to wrap this around. I want the tank to go way over. So I think you're getting the idea here. You can design a whole outfit with this tape. I think I just lost a piece. Here we go. And the nice part of this, it comes off without leaving any sticky residue on your garment. So let's first look. Here's some charmeuse. Now, it depends. The pink dress, I draped the entire top with muslin fabric. Same with the other tank top. I used a cheap muslin fabric. For the skirt part and for the petals, I used the actual fabric so I could see how it's going to hang. So here's a piece of fabric. Here's my grain line. I left the salvage so you could see it. It's really nice if you have 60 wide fabric if you're going to do a skirt. And look at this. Okay, all of a sudden, we're on the bias. 45-degree angle to each grain line. Take this. I'm going to grab some pins. A little trick that I do, if you have any pockets, I stick my pins in there. All right, I'm going to wrap it around one side, a pin going against the grain. I'm going to wrap it around the other side, and a pin going this way. So what I would do is cut this at the bottom, just like I did the other one over here, and I would drape another piece on the back and match up these side seams so I'm actually stitching on the grain line, but the skirt is hanging on the bias. Again, remember you have to get in and out of the garment, so make sure that you have a fabric pen. So for this, I would mark, okay, this is the waist. This is where my zipper is going to be. Quite often, I put the zipper in by hand first and then stitch. So that's that part. Now let's get to the top, which I'm going to use a cheap piece of fabric so I can mark it up and show you how this works. Just take fabric, just cheap cotton, it rips. By the way, you'll end up with threads all over you. It's okay. When you go to the grocery store, they'll think you've been busy. So this is on grain. Again, if you have a hard time determining what's the bias because you can't see the grain lines, mark it with your pen. So I could either start like this, or I could start like this with the bias. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if I want this to be tight on the body, then this part right here better be on grain because the bias is going to stretch out and drape. So I'm going to take this part right here and just kind of pin it in place. That's usually how I start. I've got all this extra fabric. And you know what? I think I'd like a seam down the center. Trust me, once you start doing this, it is so much fun. And then I'm just going to take the fabric. Now, how am I going to attach the shoulder? Do I want to have a band down the side? Do I want to just have a band of fabric here? Do I want to have it tie around the back? Again, look at the back of this one. See this tie? So I'm just going to start draping. One common thing is to just kind of take the fabric and pleat it a little bit. And I'm going to put a couple pins in here. Again, draping down. So this is actually still draping, but it's not draping like the skirt where the fabric just hangs. You're actually getting a little bit of structure, but still using the beauty of the fabric. When you do this out of muslin first, then you're going to need to mark all of your seam lines. So here, let's just say that this is all I want. I'm all finished. I can see through the side where my black tape is. Don't be afraid to cut the fabric. This is kind of why I wanted to do the top with the muslin, because you're not afraid to cut. This fabric is so cheap. Okay, here's my side seam. Let me turn this a little bit so you can see. There's going to be my side seam. And I can see the tape. Here's going to be my arm. It's pretty basic. You need to get in and out of the top. You need to have room for your arms, and it needs to stay up. So I have this here, and I'm not sure yet if I'm going to tie this, or maybe I could add a band to the back. The options are endless once you get the basics down. So here's my top, and I need to have one more notch over here. So see how nicely the side lays? I didn't even need to put a dart in there because I used all the draping to create this. Now compare this to the pink dress. It's almost identical. That's how easy that is. But of course, there's more to it than that. So let me put a pin in here and show you. I have some just thread. I'm using a contrasting color so you can see. So this is what I would do next, is take my needle and just kind of gather this fabric, because I want to know what this is going to look like on a garment without, or on the dress form without pins, to make sure I like it before I turn it into a pattern. So I would continue to sew that so that stays there. Then I'm going to take some scissors, although that's quite beautiful if that was all satin hanging down like that, but I'm going to cut it. Now, if you had wanted to leave that like that, all you would have to do is finish the seams and hand stitch it in place. So, but we don't want that, so we're getting rid of it. So here's this part. We would do the same thing to the other side. Again, this is why that tape is there, so you can align everything. I'm going to grab one more piece of muslin here and just give it a rip. Remember I said you needed something at the waist. Well, because the skirt is on the bias, which is going to stretch out, and because this needs something to attach to, you can't just attach this to the skirt. It won't work. So I would take a band of fabric, wrap it around, just give it a pinning back here to hold. So this is what this is going, the top is going to attach to this band. Here's another thread. I had this already, I didn't think you needed to watch that part. And you're going to actually pin and stitch, just a messy stitch, it doesn't have to be neat. Make sure you're not stitching to the dress form. And if you do, don't worry. Just rip out the stitch. But you can kind of feel it back there. So that's going to go around like this, and I'm going to go all the way around. Again, you'd have the other side finished. And then I would lift this up as high as I want it. Now I want to show you on the pink one, it started like that. Which, by the way, this would be a very cute top. So let's pause for 1 second. If this was a shirt, it could be the back, could be a halter. This could be a tie as well. Very, very, very simple. Make sure it doesn't fall off on me. And you wouldn't even need a zipper. You would need to attach this to something. So you could either ruche it down to here. Let me show you. It could come down, fold it under. I hope you're seeing there really aren't any rules to this. As long as it stays on your body and fits good, you're doing great. Now, go back up here. Let's just say that the back was finished as well. You're going to need a hidden zipper. So what I would do is when I'm all finished, I would put a hidden zipper all the way down through here and mark that on my muslin and then add a seam allowance, which is what I have on the top over there. So the pink started like this, and all I did was I ruched this into a band. Very, very, very simple. And then the skirt, you'll have to trim the bottom, but let me just get some of this fabric flat. The ruching, don't be too technical. This is all it is. You take your hand, your needle, go in and out of the fabric. See this? In and out, all the way down. I think I got it kind of knotted there, but. And then when you pull this up, you get the ruching. Now on the pink top, I went very narrow rows with obviously you'd use a thread to match, and you end up with that band. And the last thing is the skirt down here. When you're finished, before you cut that to the length that you want, you might have to add panels. Like here on the side, it's kind of short. If you've seen a bias cut dress, a lot of times they have panels on the side. It's because there's not enough fabric. So I would make sure that I had the length right. So measure on your body from here with your shoes on to the length that you want, and do the same thing on the mannequin, and then trim. But give yourself 2 extra inches before you hem it. When you're all finished with the straping, before you do the hemming on the dress, let it hang for at least 24 hours. I really suggest 48, because this fabric continues to grow. So that is really how easy it is to drape. I've given you a lot of ideas. Don't forget, you can also just do a square. So this was a little touch of the 30s made modern.